I am Legend, the legend of Hell House, the incredible shrinking man. What dreams may come somewhere in time. All of these are based on stories by the legendary Richard Matheson. And now, well, in 2011, another film based on a Richard Matheson story was released. This based on an old Twilight Zone episode called Steel. The movie, Real Steel. Wait a minute. That's Richard Matheson? Apparently, yes. Real Steel is a film starring Hugh Jackman as Charlie Kenton, a washed up ex boxer who has become something of a hustler who apparently owes every promoter across the country money. And he's desperate to win just enough to pay the next guy so that he can continue living. And he doesn't seem to be able to break out of this vicious cycle. He has an ex-girlfriend played by Evangeline Lilly named Bailey, who is almost done tolerating him and his BS. And he's got a son he's never met named Max from a girlfriend that he barely remembers. Well, the movie begins when Max's mom dies and Charlie is asked to sign away custody of the boy to his aunt, his only other living relative. And of course, Charlie, being Charlie, decides to turn this into an opportunity to make money. Long story short, Charlie winds up spending the summer with Max and bringing Max along in his hustling schemes, trying to make money with these giant boxing robots that have replaced men in the boxing arena. And now Max gets the fever for this. Max apparently is a fan of the sport, and now with his first opportunity to be inside the sport, he clearly displays much more intelligence than his dad. His dad is a guy almost like Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler, a guy who does not have the ability to get out of his own way. Once the fighting starts, he doesn't seem to have a plan, and this is actually part of the story. It's pointed out to him by his son. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just throwing everything out there and trying to see what works. And in a fight, that usually ends up getting your ass kicked, which is what happens, causing Charlie to constantly lose money and constantly owe more and more people. So Max winds up being he starts off as the mentor character, clearly the brains of the operation. But the story actually is, believe it or not, it is Max's story. About a third of the way through the story, Max finds a robot, and he puts it together, he gets it working, and he begins to fight it. At which point, the roles reverse and Max becomes the hero of the story, with his dad Charlie acting as the reluctant mentor. And of course, this is a guy who can't get out of his own way. He's got a lot to learn before he can become a mentor. And Evangeline Lilly's character, Bailey, is, of course, she is the robot mechanic who was, at one point when boxing was human, her dad was a boxing trainer, ran a gym where Charlie trained out of during his boxing days, and they have a romantic history. She's the ally, and now we have our villains. Our villains are a Russian and a Japanese pair who run this robot that is the champion of the world. I forget that particular robot's name at the moment, but he just wrecks everything in front of him. Of course, they have to fight by the end of the movie. Now, the upside. The upside of this movie is that it's pretty fun, it's pretty entertaining, the action is intense, It's got its funny bits, and its funny bits are not annoying. You in a father son movie like this, it could very much get too annoying, or it could get too sappy. Because it's very much like the Champ, and the little kid looks a lot like Rick Schroeder in the Champ. It's one of those movies, and the downside is that when you first meet Charlie, he's not a very likable guy. When you first meet this guy, you're not even gonna want to stick with him long enough to give him a chance. He's a douchebag at the beginning of this movie. Really, he is really a scumbag. And it's well acted enough so that you actually don't like this guy. And it takes a while to warm to him. But you do. And when the movie gets underway, Hugh Jackman gives a great performance. He gives a very good performance. And so does the kid. The kid does a good performance too. And so this movie, for a review, I give this movie actually 4 stars because it was that much fun. It was that well acted. It's very well directed. I When I realized which Twilight Zone episode it's based on, it makes a little more sense that this is a Richard Matheson story. But because the Twilight Zone episode is much darker than this. Um, so this is a 4-star movie. So the question is, did you recognize it as a Twilight Zone episode? Because I sure didn't. I had to look this thing up on Wikipedia to have a clue that it was about that particular Twilight Zone episode, which is called Steel. So which one do you like better? And let me know.